Welcome back, everybody. So we got a few things to talk about today. Sam Bankman-Fried news on charges. We got another person on charges, the president's son. I can't mention any names here. Give the video a like, a comment. Let's break the YouTube algorithm. We're going to hear about some comments from John Lennon. Also, the Federal Reserve. Just before the Federal Reserve, something happened. This video I'm going to show you is going to talk about it. Leave your comments down below. We're going to have a little fun this Saturday morning, so enjoy. Come to thecryptorealm.com, must-read books, Bitcoin Standard, and today the Federal Reserve is going to be mentioned, so I thought I'd highlight this book here, The Creature from Jekyll Island. This is a book on how the Federal Reserve was created. The video we're about to watch discusses some of the people involved in this process and what happened just before the Federal Reserve was created and who was standing in its way and what happened to them. Again, I can't really say names right here, but things happened this week in the news that were like a big distraction. It was a sad event, but it distracted you guys from a few things. Sam Bankman-Fried, the president's son. So I think we should talk about that. Oh, John Lennon also has some comments in this video. Pretty cool from way back when. And I think he's right on point. This is the Crypto Realm. Play hard, trade smart. You're still early. Like, comment. Let's break that YouTube algorithm.
I was like, oh, maybe people are starting to figure it out. It's amazing how many people don't know. Well, I guess, it's 100 years ago. All the propaganda, you got the Leonardo DiCaprio, total sellout globalist who goes to all the climate change things and his yachts and his jets. And people just think, oh, it's just a tragedy that just happened. No. it was like, it's way bigger than most people know. Like, for example, did you know there's two Titanics? One was called the Olympus, and it actually had they actually crashed it. That's not the right word. You don't really crash boats, but they kind of did. And damaged it so bad that it was going to have to be a write-off. And so they decided, it's amazing how smart these people are. They decided to paint over it, call it the Titanic, and then go and sink it, but not just for no reason. They put on most of the people who are against the Federal Reserve being enacted. This is 1912, 1 year before the Fed was created. They put on most of the people who were against it, and they said, oh, JP Morgan, the Rothschilds, Rockefeller, they're all going to be on it. They canceled the morning of. They were there and they just walked off. And then they sank it. It's amazing.
Have you heard the theory of the Titanic and the Federal Reserve? Well, here it goes. So on the Titanic, there's some extremely wealthy passengers like JP Morgan, John Rockefeller, and the Rothschilds. But then you have Jacob Astor, the wealthiest man in the world at the time. He owned about 40% of all mortgages, and he was a Freemason who was very opposed to the idea of a central bank. Whereas JP Morgan, Rockefeller, and Rothschild strongly supported the idea of a central bank. So Jacob Astor was the only one standing in the way of a central bank at the time. Coincidentally, the morning the Titanic was supposed to set sail, JP Morgan, some Rothschilds, and others quietly exited the ship without any explanation. 5 days later, Titanic slams into an iceberg and it starts to sink. And even though Jacob Astor is the wealthiest man in the world, he still can't find a seat in a lifeboat, and he ends up sinking with the ship. Shortly after, these guys become the wealthiest men in the world, and without Jacob Astor standing in their way, the next year in 1913, on Jekyll Island in Georgia, the Federal Reserve Act was signed into law, paving the way to print money out of thin air and completely control our monetary system. Was this a coincidence or a conspiracy?
Just amazing how evil these people are. And look at, who are the richest people in the world now? The biggest sort of company, JP Morgan, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. And a lot of it's because of their founding of the Federal Reserve. That was like a huge, basically takeover of the US and takeover of the money system, which they've used to get incredibly rich. But no, not many people are talking about that. They're talking about how sad it is that these people went down, but it's pretty incredible. I didn't know anything about it. It's a company called OceanGate, And first of all, they're like super woke. Like, of course they are. And this is what I was talking about just a couple of videos ago, and here's like a prime example of it. So the owner of OceanGate came out and said that they don't hire any 50-year-old white men because they're just, you know, they're not inspirational enough.
Listen to what he talks about. The CEO talks about hiring people.
Yes, I mean, when I started the business, one of the things you'll find, there are other sub-operators out there, but they typically have gentlemen who are ex-military submariners, and you'll see a whole bunch of 50-year-old white guys. I wanted our team to be younger, to be inspirational, and I'm not going to inspire a 16-year-old to go pursue marine technology. But a 25-year-old, who's a sub-pilot or a platform operator, or one of our techs, can be inspirational. And so we've really tried to get very intelligent, motivated, younger individuals involved, because we're doing things that are completely new. We're taking approaches that are used largely in the aerospace industry, is related to safety and some of the preponderance of checklists, things we do for risk assessments and things like that are more aviation related than ocean related. And we can train people to do that. We can train someone to pilot the sub. We use a game controller, so anybody can drive the sub.
They did have a 50-year-old white guy. I'm a 50-year-old white guy, by the way. Guess I'm not very inspirational. But they did have one, and he pointed out that the viewport at the forward of the submersible was only built to a certified pressure of 1,300 meters, although OceanGate intended to take the passengers down to depths of 4,000 meters, so he refused to greenlight it. So OceanGate actually sued him. He countersued them, but he turns out to be totally right. But here's a tweet from OceanGate. These are the women of OceanGate. They are submersible pilots, data analysts, business managers, engineering PMs, marketers, conservationists, explorers, boat captains, innovators, and thought leaders, all working together to open the oceans. Yeah, so they wouldn't hire any 50-year-old white guys who, in general, like when it comes to engineers and stuff like that, those are sort of the, like some of the more experienced, some of the better ones in general, not just because they're white, but there tends to be quite a few white people like that, but also older, right? 50 years old, they got a bit of experience, right? But now we don't want to hire any of those people. We're going to hire all women. And just like I was saying, and it's not against women or anything, it's like, you know, young women just, you know, putting together this sub, which they actually put together, and it's steered with an Xbox game controller, and the CEO actually doesn't even know it's an Xbox controller. He thinks it's a Sony PlayStation controller.
Sony PlayStation style controller.
But it's even worse. It's not even an Xbox controller. It's like a cheap Logitech version. They saved $8 by getting the Logitech version. Yeah, that's sort of like the way companies are run today. Really woke and cool. And to me, like, a lot of people talk about their Titanic again as like perfect timing, because like everything's about to implode. And really a lot of the world today all happened because of what they did, the big scam crime they did with the Titanic. And like I said, like, how psychopathic can you be? Like, would you do this? Would you really want to have a central bank and like head it up, and you want it so bad that you come up with a giant scam, a big idea to sink an entire cruise liner full of tons of people just to kill a few guys so that people would know? Like, that's the kind of people we're talking about. Like, John Lennon even said it, like, what, 40 years ago, 50 years ago?
All our society is run by insane people for insane objectives. You know? And I think that's what I sussed when I was 16 and 12 way down the line. But I expressed it differently all through my life. It's the same thing I'm expressing all the time. But now I can put it into that sentence that I think we're being run by maniacs for maniacal ends, you know. If anybody can put on paper what our government and the American government, etc., and the Russian, Chinese, what they are actually trying to do, you know, and what they think they're doing, I'd be very pleased to know what they think they're doing. I think they're all insane. You know, but I'm liable to be put away as insane for expressing that.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's insane about it.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you agree?
I do.
It's insane, you know. It's not just a bit strange. It's just insane.
And that's the
And nobody knows. All these people in the street and that. Half the people watching this are going to be saying, "Oh, what's he saying? What's he saying?" You know, that you are being run by people who are insane, and you don't know.
Yeah, they're not so much insane as they are completely psychopathic. And, like, to them, nothing matters but them having power and money. Nothing. Like, they'll do anything to get it. Like George Soros and his son, which I'll get into in a bit. And really, not much has changed since John Lennon was talking about it, except for they're, like, everywhere now. Back when John Lennon was talking about it, it was, like, pretty small. Now it's like every prime murderer, every president, and they're all from the World Economic Forum, and they're just continuing to do all their stuff. It's pretty incredible. But I hear the submarine thing's been on the news for like all week. Like, I don't know who still watches any of that, but apparently some people do. And you have to wonder, there's a lot of things going on. There's an actual genocide, the biggest genocide ever done as far as we know in human history. And no mention of that. There's a massive financial collapse coming. No mention of that, of course. But, you know, can focus on like a submarine with a couple of guys that had a problem for like a week. Well, when that happens, all you need to do is look around and go, well, what are they doing this for? What are they not talking about? Well, there's actually a lot. First, the president of the US, his son, who's on video smoking crack with like little girls, I mean like 10-year-old girls, him naked, them pretty much naked. And some people went through and tried to count up all the crimes, because everything's illegal in the US anyway, but that Hunter Biden did, that was all on just his laptop, which he took into a repair shop, apparently. And he records all this stuff, which is like incredibly incredible. And it's like hundreds of things he did illegal. So they said, okay, we're gonna charge Hunter with a few things. They charged him with like a gun charge for like not having a registered handgun or something. I don't know the exact details because I don't care. And they charged him with a couple other minor things. And no jail time, nothing. Meanwhile, just for the one gun charge they charged him with, people like Lil Wayne and Kodak Black are facing years in prison, even up to 10 years in prison for the same charges. But they're not the president's son, so they're probably going to be charged. I think one of them, I think the Kodak Black guy's already in jail. Of course, they already had people. Yeah, they do this all the time. It's just incredible. But that's just one of many things that were pretty big that happened this week while they got everyone talking about a submarine. Like, surprise, surprise, I said this was going to happen. Sam Bankman-Fried, who ran a fraud that defrauded people of billions of dollars. Basically, they dropped all the charges this week. Did you know about that? Probably not. They don't talk about any of this stuff. And of course, he is one of the biggest political donators to the Democrat Party and the Republicans as well, which is actually pretty smart. And that's just how it works. Like, it's always worked that way, just so you know. Like, every place is the same. If you've got enough money and you pay off the politicians, you can pretty much get out of anything you want. Like, part of the reason I don't live in the US, aside from like the culture's like a disaster and there's like no freedom, is I just don't have enough money to pay off the politicians, although we'll get into that in a second. They're not as expensive as you think. But here in Mexico,